Hey guys, Tyler here. One of the defining aspects of Star Trek's optimistic, near-utopian vision of the future is United Earth. A founding member of the United Federation of Planets in the 22nd century, United Earth was the sole governing authority of all humanity during our early forays into deep space. While some interplanetary and interstellar colonies have since gained independence, United Earth remains the dominant authority in the Sol system. Formed from the unification of Earth's nation-states in the decades following first contact, United Earth is the replacement for the much less powerful United Nations, exerting more direct control over Earth and its resources. While the concept of a global government has long been controversial in real life, Star Trek's United Earth is presented as a more benevolent entity, the logical conclusion of an increasingly democratizing population. But how does United Earth really work, and is it indeed too optimistic an outcome for humanity? Let's find out. Before we dive in, a little real-world background. In both Star Trek and real life, the trend of political integration between Earth nations has waxed and waned. For millennia, large portions of the Earth were conquered by empires that came and went. After the height of European imperialism in the 19th century, the concept of the nation-state became more mainstream, with World War I preceding a large-scale decentralization of power across the world, with some exceptions of course, like the Bolshevik Revolution. The decades following World War II saw the acceleration of decolonization, but the old empires were instead replaced by new international bodies like corporations, as well as organizations like the UN. The European Union coalesced in 1993, building upon previous stages of economic and political integration. But in 2020, the UK became the first member state to leave the EU. This coincided with a rise of nationalism across the world, a trend that is still ongoing today. So clearly, humans have been rather fickle about whether we want to be a truly global species, or whether we want to keep the walls up that separate us into tribes. The Next Generation pilot encounter at Farpoint speaks of a new United Nations in place by 2036, apparently replacing the current UN for reasons unknown. The new organization fails, however, to prevent World War III from culminating in nuclear conflict in 2053, collapsing long before 2079 during the post-atomic horror. By this time, the idea of a united Earth is still laughable to many, proving that even in the late 21st century in Star Trek, we're still not ready to be a truly global species. A loose alliance called the European hegemony, perhaps a successor to a failed EU, emerges by the 2120s according to the episode Up the Long Ladder. The hegemony is cited as a direct precursor to United Earth, and indeed, United Earth's capital is stated to be in London, England, according to Star Trek Online. Looks like the Brits wanted back in. As far as when United Earth is actually founded, well, the common wisdom is the year 2113. This is when, according to Deanna Troi in Star Trek First Contact, humans have eliminated disease, hunger, poverty, war, and other social ills. But this in and of itself does not necessarily imply unification, just peace and prosperity, which is still awesome, don't get me wrong. Starfleet coming into existence by 2140, according to the Enterprise episode First Flight, means a global government may have existed by then as well. All in all, the year 2150 serves as a more concrete date, as the TNG episode attached states that the final holdouts have joined United Earth by this year. By the way, it's a common misconception that Australia was the last nation to join, but this is only used by Beverly Crusher as a hypothetical when discussing the political situation on Kesprit. Let's dive a little deeper though. We've established some history, but what about United Earth's structure? Years ago, when I was a much younger man, and the world was more innocent, I made a video exploring the parallels between the Federation and various real-world entities like the UN, EU, and United States. But this video isn't about the Federation. What's the closest equivalent to United Earth itself? Well, while we don't know everything about how the organization works in canon, we do have some information and can make some inferences. As a member world of the Federation, United Earth retains sovereignty over its own territories, but still has to adhere to Federation law. United Earth government officials include ministers, as we learn in Enterprise, while Discovery confirms that United Earth's head of state is the president. While various non-canon sources describe United Earth as having a parliamentary system, the existence of both ministers and an Earth president indicates that in practice, Earth is closer to something like a semi-presidential republic. In this kind of system, while the popularly elected president has plenty of executive power and serves as more than just a ceremonial figurehead, the prime minister still serves separately as head of government. A modern-day example of a semi-presidential republic is France, and it just so happens that Paris is where the office of future presidents of the Federation is located as well. Semi-presidential republics also make the president's cabinet responsible to the legislature, unlike in a full presidential system like the US. And unlike in pure parliamentary systems, the prime minister is often appointed by the president. An example of this is Vladimir Putin being appointed as prime minister in between serving presidential terms during the 2000s. The exact roles of each leader generally depends on the country and the specific language of its constitution. Something else that's referenced quite frequently throughout Star Trek is the fact that United Earth is still composed of smaller nation-states and confederations that retain some individual identity. In passing, we hear mentions of the African Confederation, Canada, the European Alliance, Russia, and of course the USA. Though it's unclear if the USA has retained its sovereignty much past the late 21st or early 22nd century, perhaps becoming part of a continental federation with Canada and Mexico. So references to US states may be more geographic in nature. Nevertheless, many characters still retain their national identities even in the post-Enterprise era. Famously, Pavel Chekhov is, of course, proudly Russian. Geordi LaForge is a confirmed citizen of the African Confederation, having been born in Somalia. Nyota Uhura is also stated to have been born in the United States of Africa, according to the original series Bible. More than likely the same entity, which may be an evolution of the real-world African Union. Jean-Luc Picard was born in France, James T. Kirk is from Iowa, Leonard McCoy is from Georgia, William T. Riker is from Alaska, Harry Kim is from South Carolina. I could go on and on. The point is, the existence of a United Earth does not mean that every government below the planetary level has completely ceased to exist. Subordinate political units would remain necessary if for nothing else than administrative purposes, in order to govern smaller territories more efficiently at the local, state, national, and even continental level. So United Earth isn't named so arbitrarily. It is a union of Earth's nation-states. Before we go any further, I do want to mention that, according to my analytics, over 3/4 of the people who watch these videos are not subscribed. That's gotta change. If you're enjoying this video and if you want to see more content like this from the channel, be sure and subscribe so you won't miss updates. Back to the video. On a side note, it's interesting to consider what the demographics of Earth would be even by the mid-22nd century. Even by the 24th and 25th centuries, we still see a distribution of people in command roles in Starfleet that reflects the demographics of modern-day America. Mostly people of European descent, as well as some people of Asian, African, and Latin descent. it stands to reason that many people from these parts of the world would still rise through the ranks due to the Federation's heavy presence in San Francisco and Paris. But realistically, by this time, the world is expected to be much more multipolar. That is, instead of the United States being the world's sole superpower, other countries would hold a larger share of the economic and military power that they do today. For instance, currently, China, India, and the US have the 3 largest populations in the world. But by 2100, the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation, or IHME, projects that these will have changed to India, Nigeria, and China, respectively. The same estimate has the US dropping into 4th place, followed by Pakistan, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Indonesia, Ethiopia, Egypt, and Tanzania. Interestingly, Brazil, Russia, Bangladesh, and Japan, all part of the top 10 most populous countries today, are expected to lose population over the next century. The same goes for China and India, despite India emerging at the top of the total population leaderboard. According to the UN, nearly 11 billion people may live on Earth by then, a figure close to those given by various non-canon Star Trek reference materials, and also given as the population of Earth by 2186 in Mass Effect. However, the IHME projects that the population will peak at 9.7 billion by 2064, 11 years after the conclusion of Star Trek's World War III, and decline to 8.8 billion by 2100. There will also be more people over the age of 65 and fewer people under the age of 15. Many more people are also expected to be clustered in extremely crowded metropolises, with population density expected to rise, especially in Nigeria. Columbia University linguist Dr. John McWhorter also predicts that 90% of the world's languages may be gone by 2115 due to increasing globalization, as people migrate into new areas and assimilate into other cultures. In this scenario, only 600 languages will remain, and McWhorter believes that people's everyday vocabularies will be simplified and streamlined. A humorous illustration of this trend is exemplified in a scene from The Expanse, the TV show, not the Enterprise episode.
No matter where the debate leads, we need you to come off as more approachable, nurturing. The caring family matriarch, it tested—
Get the fuck out!
English will also probably remain the world's dominant language.
English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
Due to the influence it has had on global technology standards. Of course, several of these estimates are contingent on newer trends. They don't take into account, for example, the death toll of a hypothetical World War III, meaning by definition, they could change again in the future. In terms of Earth's various agencies, the United Earth Space Probe Agency, or USPA, is one of the most frequently mentioned, particularly in the original series. USPA predates Starfleet according to the Voyager episode Friendship 1, with many later Starship crews a combined service of officers from both organizations. Prior to the establishment of the Federation, the United Earth Diplomatic Corps is also tasked with running the United Earth Embassy on Vulcan. Starfleet, having been founded circa the 2130s, is also technically a United Earth agency at this time as well. And the Military Assault Command Operations, or MACO, are a branch of the broader United Earth military, until both are dissolved after the founding of the Federation in 2161. I find it quite interesting that the United Earth military has been completely dissolved, its functions presumably being absorbed into Starfleet, Section 31, and other agencies like the Federation Naval Patrol. Effectively, this means that Earth's defense would no longer be centralized to a specifically planet-wide agency, instead one of the many responsibilities of the much more resource-rich Federation. This is somewhat to be expected though, as in tiered systems like this, the subordinate power would rely on the larger power for things like defense anyway. As for whether Starfleet is truly capable of defending Earth, Well, honestly, that depends on the episode. Additionally, as we see in Discovery Season 3, the burn and Earth's subsequent withdrawal from the Federation led to the formation of the United Earth Defense Force. Later, Earth rejoins the Federation along with the returning Titan back under Earth's jurisdiction as it had been in the millennium prior to the burn. As for how realistic this all is, well, that's honestly up to you to decide. It's easy in these trying times to be cynical about the future of our species' cooperation. Even in less trying times, Gene Roddenberry's vision of how humans can overcome our differences was always viewed as extremely utopian, and I think that's a fair assessment. But at the end of the day, Star Trek's collective vision of the future, created by many forward-thinking writers and creative staff, is still quite hopeful. And while dystopian science fiction certainly has its place, without hope, what else have we got to cling on to? Pardon the pun. Ultimately, a global government could end up being an authoritarian nightmare like the Clark administration in Babylon 5, a quote-unquote socialist workers' paradise like in Star Trek, or a milquetoast neoliberal bureaucracy like in The Expanse. In any event, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on United Earth below. With that, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a thumbs up down below and don't forget to share it. That stuff really helps me out. If you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to do that as well so you won't miss future uploads, and click the bell icon to receive all notifications. If you want to support my work even further, becoming a patron or a member is a great way to do so. Links to those, as well as my social media and merch store, where you can get a sweet jacket like this, are in the description. That's all I have for this week. Live long and prosper.